So welcome and thank you so much for joining us today for today's session. My name is Cyan and I'm the coordinator for Toronto Environmental Alliance's Zero Waste High Rise project. So in case this is your first time joining us, just some background, Toronto Environmental Alliance, known as T, we're a local environmental nonprofit working for a greener city for all since 1988. We work on a range of issues, so waste reduction is one of them, but we've also worked on air quality, climate change, and we advocate for policies and programs that protect the environment. So one of T's main ways for doing this, for inspiring governments and businesses to adopt new policies, is to prove what's possible through community projects. And so this project, the Zero Waste High Rise project, is an example of that. Over the last 2.5 years, as part of this project, we've worked closely with and studied the waste practices of buildings all across Toronto and what their approaches are for reducing waste. And so the goal of this project is to really show what's possible in multi-res building. The project is funded by the Ontario Trillium Foundation, which is an agency of the Government of Ontario. And it's also a partnership with researchers at the University of Toronto. So they help us document and evaluate the performance of buildings that we work with. And we have funding from SSHRC, the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council of Canada. So today we're joined by the Green Committee leaders at 40 Homewood, who are going to take us on a virtual tour of their building Zero Waste Spaces. I'm going to quickly give you an overview of what this building has achieved and point out some things to look out for during the tour. Then we're going to bring up Michael and Lisa to take us on the tour, and I'll ask them some questions along the way. And at the end of the tour, we'll have some time for you to be able to ask them questions directly. And as we go along, feel free to note down your questions and throw them in the chat as they come up, and we'll review these and go through them together. So 40 Homewood is a condo in downtown Toronto. It's 32 stories high and it has 496 units. And they're actually one of the 6 original buildings that T worked with during the pilot phase of our project. So we started working with 40 Homewood back in 2018, and we've been studying their waste practices and activities over the last 3 years. They have a single chute on each floor for garbage, and they have a waste room on the ground floor for recycling, organics, and special waste collection. So I'm going to highlight a few key activities that this building has done to achieve waste reduction. So one of the really cool things that this building's done is that they actually did a waste room beautification project to make the room more inviting. So they had put in new paint, new lights, and they also rearranged the layout to make it more tidy and easy to move around. So Michael and Lisa will speak more about this during the tour. This building is also exceptional at putting out consistent communication about waste, which includes widespread signage throughout the building and information they're doing. The signage and posters are supplemented with monthly newsletters and email updates. So this type of ongoing and repetitive communication is really key to improving resident waste practices. The purpose of this is to make sure it's very clear what waste sorting rules are, which, as we all know, are really confusing. So clarifying these rules is especially important in multi-res buildings, because rules can differ from building to building, depending on who your waste service provider is. And there are always new residents moving in. So it's important for the building to clearly communicate this and offer consistent reminders. And another goal of communication is to align residents with larger building goals and share feedback on how the building's doing to make progress towards these goals, which increases motivation to participate. So yeah, during the tour, you're going to see a lot of examples of the really diverse ways that 40 Homewood puts out this type of communication. And the other best practice that 40 Homewood does is they put a large focus on encouraging not just recycling, but also reducing and reusing waste. So they do this by providing a space called the Free Boutique, where residents can drop off and take reusable goods. In the past, the buildings also organized highly popular clothing drives, and they also have an Oasis donation bin. So Michael and Lisa will review their reuse efforts during the tour as well. As a result of these types of efforts, 40 Homewood has made major zero waste improvements in the last few years. At the beginning of our work with Homewood in 2018, we measured that they had a diversion rate of 33%. So this means that only 33% of the total waste produced at their building was being recycled or composted at that time. But when we did a follow-up study a year later in summer 2019, we measured that their diversion rate had improved to 40%. We also measured a reduction in contamination in their blue bin and a reduction in their overall garbage. Since 2019, Homewood has continued to make ongoing steady improvements. So we're really excited to continue monitoring their success. And I just wanted to say that I believe some of the key factors for the success is that they do have at this building a dedicated green committee, which proposes environmental initiatives to the building and takes the lead in implementation. And this green committee also does a really good job of communicating and collaborating with staff. We'll hear a bit about how they've actually worked with staff to track the building's waste output. And most importantly, they've sustained this effort over several years. So these changes didn't happen overnight. Each year, they made incremental improvements based on the team's interest and capacity. And these efforts have compounded over time. So the waste reduction efforts in this building are led by Michael and Lisa, who we're going to meet now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Siski, and I'm the chair of the Green Committee at 40 Homewood.
Hey, Michael. Hey, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I recently moved out of the building, so I'm technically a greenie on the go, but I was very involved in the Green Committee for 4 years.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, Lisa. All right, so I'm going to share my screen.
So welcome to 40 Homewood. We're just north of Allen Gardens near Jarvis and Carlton. 32 stories tall, and as mentioned, 492 units, and the building was built in 1972. And just going through our lobby here with our COVID protocols in place. We'll take you up the elevator shortly so we can check out the garbage chute. And up the elevator, you'll see that we have a monitor where not only do you see the weather and if you have a parcel at the front with our security, but we also post notices for different green efforts to encourage composting and things that we see that that residents might be making a mistake in that we try and highlight, such as black plastics and folding boxes.
You use this monitor, Michael, to kind of put out reminders of different focus messaging you want to give to the residents about waste?
Yes. So we have this monitor in the elevators, and then we also have one in our mailroom and laundry room.
Cool.
And also on our TV channel.
Oh, sweet.
There's a building TV channel, yeah.
That's awesome. And so is it, you guys just kind of come up with like a graphic and you give it to the office and they put it up here?
Yeah, so during our meetings, we would brainstorm ideas, and then we'll take some time to create a graphic, and we'll send it to our board and management to ask if they can place it up on the monitor.
Gotcha. Cool.
And then checking out our garbage chute. Lisa, do you want to describe the signage in here?
Yeah, sure. So the chute is just for garbage. Michael and I always had a long-term dream to convert it to an organics only bin, but that's a longer-term initiative for us. So for now, it's just focused on garbage. And we were very strategic about the signage we put up in it because we didn't want to overwhelm residents with having a whole bunch of signage that, to be honest, people don't really spend a lot of time on the garbage chute. They just run in, throw their garbage down, and then run out. So we just put minimal signage in, but something very informative
Nice.
about where the different waste goes.
And can you speak a bit about, we'll talk a bit more about signage later, but I was wondering, like, Michael and Lisa, what do you guys do to get, like, for example, this sign that you have up
Well,
with the
I
three
mean,
screens?
So with the garbage chute, I mean, I think this is important for starting green committees, is that a lot of our signage comes from the city. They have, if you're not a 3R ambassador, you can become one, but even if you're not, if you contact the city, they have tons of free signage for you. And they update it constantly and they'll send it to you. So, you know, for green committees don't have a lot of money, this is a good way to get some supplies.
Cool.
And heading back down to the lobby, just walking around the corner to our mail room. If you just pause for a sec, we'll be showing some more signages of the on the right. But in general, we have the Green Committee bulletin board, and just beyond is the management's bulletin board, where they post things like fire alarm testing and other renovations that might be happening. And then a recent initiative that we have going on is to request residents to say no to junk mail. So we have these labels that we have printed through just a inkjet printer that a member created and supplied to us, and we post these up. So far, we figure with the number of stickers that have been taken, we have about 15% more residents saying no to junk mail. And in the past, we've had different campaigns to encourage people to say no to junk mail.
And there's
Cool.
the other monitor back there too, which is a repeat of the one in the elevator.
Yeah.
So you guys use this entire board and it's dedicated for the Green Committee's messaging?
Yes, yeah. So we have a member that created a bunch of posters for us. I think we're going to be going through those in a bit, so we can talk more about those.
Cool.
And then just in the back of the building here, we have our moving in and out room, where we also have garbage and recycling. And then just continuing into the waste room.
I saw a question about the junk mail stickers. We put them right in our mailboxes.
So here we are in our waste room. We recently got the walls repainted and new lights installed, and our property our board liaison, Brian, he took the initiative to make sure this got completed to help brighten the room and make it more inviting for people to come in. Before, it was a bit darker and difficult to see. And as you can see on the back wall there, we have a custom poster that I took the time to create. I used a free program similar to Adobe Illustrator called Inkscape. It's just one word, Inkscape. And it took a bit of time to get all the graphics that I liked to kind of line up with what the bins are placed here. So we have our compost on the right here, and then we have our recycling bins on the left. And in the past, we've had the staff help us log our bins each week, and in the past we used to have a problem with recycling overflowing. So we had an assessment, or we made our own assessments and proposed a rearrangement of our bins. Just out of frame on the left, we also have a garbage bin for residents to use for stuff that can't fit down the chute. And before, it used to be a recycling bin there, and then the garbage closer to the door So during the weekends, staff can then take out the bins that are full and replace them with new ones, because we find that residents tend to empty their recyclings on weekend, and on holidays it fill up real fast.
There used to be a garbage bin beside this blue bin, and you guys kind of did a bit of a study to figure out how we could make this space, just more intuitive, because before you're finding, sometimes a bit of confusion because sometimes the bins would be in different places.
Yes.
Yeah. And the garbage bin on the left used to be recycling. So we just felt that it made sense to have all the recycling in one place and all the garbage in one place and all the organics in one place.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, and before we got the large poster, you'll see that each of our bins are labeled, and we received these labels from the city of Toronto, and we stuck them on ourselves. And then each of our bins also has it has a big giant R and a number, and we also put little tiny stickers around the bins. And those are the numbers that our staff use to keep track of which bins are full, and to make sure that bins that are picked up by the city are 100% full and not necessarily partially
And so we
filled.
put the numbered labels on every side, because sometimes the orientation of the bin changes, so you might see the back of it or the side of it. So we wanted to make it easy for staff to know right away which numbered bin it was.
So what's the process? What are the staff tracking for you, and how have you used that information?
Well, we made it's a really basic stat sheet. So we just have I haven't seen it in a while, so Michael, you can correct me if I'm not getting this right, but we have all the bins numbered, and then the day of the week, and then what percentage full it is. So we do 25, 50, 75, or 100. Just like they're just supposed to eyeball it, just so we get a general idea. And then every pickup, they track the number bin and how full it is. And
Gotcha.
there's a separate grid for every week. So, and then the office scans it to us, and then Michael does the data entry and the analysis.
Cool. And Michael, what are some of the things that have come out of the analysis? I think, didn't it lead to you guys adding a new blue bin, like getting an additional one?
Yeah, because we were finding that we had the recycling overflow issue, and we find a lot of people don't break down their boxes, so the bins fill up really fast. So we did the numbers, and we checked our outdoor storage area to make sure that we could fit another recycling bin, and so the building decided we recommended to buy a new recycling bin, and that has made a big difference.
And that's brought your total up to 9 blue bins that you guys use on a weekly basis?
We're at 8.
8.
Yeah.
It also helps us track our initiatives with organics, because since we learned that 50% of our garbage was organics, we've been trying to focus on that to get more residents doing it. So typically we would only have maybe 1 a week, but some weeks now we get up to 2.
Oh, wow.
It's probably like 1 in a bit, but even that's encouraging to have more than 1.
Yeah. And it's great that you guys are able to kind of see that progress over time, because you're tracking.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That was the point. We wanted something where we could measure our success. So it took a while to figure that out, something where we could get what we needed, but not impose too much extra work on the office staff to collect that for us. So that, there is definitely some negotiation and a bit of a process involved to, refine the stat sheet we had, so that the collection would be really easy for the staff to do for us.
Gotcha. A bit of back and forth.
Yeah. And then things like convincing the office that it was worthwhile for the staff to do this, because a reduction in garbage is money savings for the building.
And so these are some message boards you have right beside the bins on the side. So I see you guys have the 3 streams posters. And what can you tell us a bit about this map that you put up here?
Yeah, so right as you enter the room, these little bulletins are up on the wall, and the floor layouts of the bins. We also have a little alcove around the corner for our household hazardous waste, as well as e-waste and returnables, liquor bottles and beer bottles. And then outside the building, we have a donation bin with Oasis. And then we also have a bulk garbage like mattresses and broken furniture that have a certain hours. So that's all posted on that floor layout and just outside the building. A lot of people, they just kind of come in the room and they don't realize that there's more to the room. So we find having this little map will help people realize, oh, there's more just around the corner.
Nice.
And then on the left, there's a whiteboard, and we'll write in messages, things that we notice, and ask residents to make sure. So because we're trying to increase our organics usage, we'll write things on there to encourage different uses for the organics, or if things that are becoming a problem, like during December and the winter months, we sometimes see a lot of wood crates, and people sometimes throw that in the recycling bin and they don't realize that it belongs in the garbage.
Gotcha. And so this is just around the corner, that alcove that you're referring to, that people might miss if they didn't know it existed there.
Yeah.
And so,
So in here we have our household hazardous waste. And each of our bins are labeled, and right now they're kind of empty right now, but they do fill up over time. And there's always batteries and inkjet cartridges. And then we have lots of room for paint cans, and sometimes we'll see fuel cans. If you pause here, I'll just explain the little signage. We find that people like to leave things in the garbage room, and things that are still good. And sometimes we even see food in here, like a bag of potatoes and carrots or something. And so we try and encourage people not to leave knickknacks and things that are reusable, because we have other donation areas in the building, and just outside the building we have our Oasis bin.
Gotcha.
I would also add that seeing donatable items consistently in the waste room was part of our inspiration to set up the Oasis bin and the free boutique.
So it was a response to just seeing this reoccurring trend that people would just kind of leave stuff here and hope that it gets picked up by someone.
Yeah. So that was something that we've noticed consistently, like month over month in the garbage room. And as Michael said, we're discouraged from taking things from the garbage room because of bed bugs and other things that could spread in the units. So we didn't. And we know people didn't feel good about throwing it out because they'd leave it next to the bin. They still do sometimes. So that's why, we put up this signage to try to discourage donations from being in the garbage room.
Yeah, gotcha. And then you have a little cabinet here for paints and I think other types of hazardous waste.
Yeah. And part of the alcove, like some of the work we've done, was creating better spaces for people to put the specialized waste, because we really took advantage of vertical space, and we got the new shelving and we got the cabinet that closes, so it looks cleaner in there, and we think that that's made a difference with people putting more stuff.
Yeah,
it's just easier to see where things go now, and it looks a lot neater.
Yeah, but before this, we just had really low profile kind of racks and garbage bins that were labeled, that sit on the floor. And then after like a month, maybe someone might be cleaning out some really old electronics, and then all of a sudden it became a tripping hazard. So having the racks alone just kind of helped prevent clutter in the room and to make sure that people can walk around safely.
Awesome.
It makes it really obvious where to put things too.
Yeah, and then in prior to the pandemic, the City of Toronto hosts the environmental community days that we would actively bring our household hazardous waste to, and dedicated volunteers would also bring it down to commissioners to get disposed of properly. But we also use toxic taxi, which is just a phone call away with 311, and working with management and letting them know that our alcove is filled, and here reminding them to request toxic taxi, because like we're not the ones that have to meet the toxic taxi. It's our staff that would then box the materials and make sure that they meet the delivery person at the right time and date.
Nice. So you guys sometimes as a committee may volunteer to take it down, kind of like a fun kind of team activity that you used to do.
Yeah.
But you guys also, when you don't have the capacity, management can set it up from the city to set it up for free.
Yeah, and the community days also has flyers and pamphlets and other like-minded people just wondering, where does this plastic item go? Does it go in the garbage? Does it go in the recycling? So just hearing those kind of questions, people asking when you're there, you're like, oh, I kind of know, or maybe it's not clear anymore. Maybe it's changed. So it's always good to talk to people then and there to get clear answers. And then the city also provides compost on the community days. So we would always bring back compost for the building.
Nice. All right, we're gonna fly by the next few. These are just a few examples of the really cool posters that this Green Committee has put up. Maybe you could quickly tell us about this, Michael and Lisa.
Well, we had we weren't that diligent about keeping the board maintained, so a resident volunteered to make us these beautiful posters. I think she just scrapbooks as a hobby, and we brainstormed what themes to give her, and then she just went to town and made all these beautiful things for us.
And that brings up for me your concept. I've never heard this term before until you mentioned it, Lisa, and I really love it. I share it with everyone. The Greenie on the Go concept. Can you explain how that works in your team?
Yeah, well, a lot of we have a lot of residents that they're interested in the green initiatives and doing things to support the environment, but they don't want the commitment of being in a committee and showing up twice a month, because we used to meet twice a month and things like that. So we came up with this honorary title of Greenie on the Go, just to where people can flit in and out to help us in whatever capacity they want, or as often or as little as they want, and just still feel like they're part of the team. So it might be helping us at an event, or making the posters, or going on a trip with us to the community day, or any writing something for the newsletter. Like any small contribution is still helpful for us.
Nice. This is just a quick slideshow of some of the different types of notices and posters you guys have up on the screens. So yeah, go on, Michael.
Yeah, in addition to these posters, our building has a newsletter that goes out to residents, and we write articles each month to make sure we have at least one Green Committee related article in our newsletter. And outside the Green Committee, our building has a library that's built fully of donations from the building residents, and is maintained by a little library committee. They go in and they'll put the books away, and they've been also spraying down the tables with the recent COVID in place. And this is the 3 bins of waste streams in our laundry room, and well labeled. And if you just follow me into the TV room where we have our free boutique, just another name for a share table for people to use to place gently used items that are acceptable. So we have our clear posters for accepted items and not accepted, And we also have extra overflow books sometimes end up here as well. And we have green committee members once a week. We make sure we come down here to just have a look at the table and make sure that there's no items like clothing or food. There was a lot of concerns from residents worried about the spread of things like bed bugs or other people's who knows what. So we just made sure that we selected items that couldn't hold those types of things. And with COVID in place, we also have another little signage that we posted, just asking residents to use caution and to clean down your items.
I would also add about the share table, just because I know participants, it's something of interest, is that it took us a while to figure out how to do our share table. It wasn't just like we came up with the idea and it happened. It took maybe a year to figure out how to get it up and running, and to negotiate what was and wasn't going to go on it.
Yeah, and talking outreach with residents and staff, because we also needed our building property management on board, because we were worried that we might have overflow and people just, when they move out, all of a sudden there might be 3 boxes down here. So we asked them if there was space in the building, if we could stick overflow with items.
Yeah, who was gonna like pack stuff up and who was gonna monitor it. So there were quite a number of details to be figured out behind the scenes.
So was it, when you say it took a year to get it set up, was it kind of like it evolved over a year into its kind of current form, or was it like a year's worth of planning to get it started?
Yeah, I think it was probably like a year's worth of planning. Like, where was it going to go? How was it going to work? Who was going to, staff it and monitor it for things that don't belong or things that are laying on it for a long time that would need to be packed up. Like, whose responsibility was that going to be? And what would and wouldn't go on it. So yeah, I think Michael, would you say probably took like a year of planning?
Okay.
Yeah, like it was always kind of brought up as like a thing that we wanted, but then we'd get pushed back, but we'd still talk about it and be like, well, what if, and what if we did this, and then we eventually we had that big long list of what's not accepted, and then eventually like, okay, let's do it.
And where would it go, and who would do the work, and like all those logistics had to be figured out.
So showing the management a clear list of what's not accepted and a clear plan of what you would do with stuff to manage things is what kind of eventually gave you the green light.
Yeah. I think maybe when we saw, we did some tours of other buildings, and when we saw how other buildings had done it, I think that was sort of the final push that, like, yes, we can do this too. And, it got the gears rolling a little bit faster then.
Yeah.
But I just bring it up because, sometimes over the years, our initiatives, like, it takes more than one go to get it off the ground.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And sorry, just backing up a bit, there was a still of a pile of donations. So, but before we had the Oasis Ban and the free boutique, our building would have clothes drives, and we used to work with the daily food, or sorry, daily bread.
I don't even remember. Yeah.
And I think one time they didn't show up for like half a day, and we had to wait around for them. And then the last time we worked with Oasis, and they accepted more than just clothing, so that's why there's a stack of items on the side. And then they said, oh, you know what, you guys can get a bin. And we're like, okay, let's work together, and with management and Oasis Clothing Bank, they worked out from the location. We also have like our building has security cameras around the building, so there's just in the backdoor entrance one. This one just kind of makes it on the side.
All right, let's see what kind of questions we have. All right, so we have a question. How many people commit to your green team to do all of these amazing things, and how many residents live in your building?
So I'd say we probably have about 1,000 residents. The number of people in the green committee fluctuates, but there's definitely a core group of maybe, what would you say, Michael, 4 or 5 people?
Yeah, I would say there's 7 of us right now that are active.
To varying degrees, but
Yeah. And our committee's been around since the early 2000s. I moved into the building 4 years ago and joined the committee like a month after moving in.
yeah, I joined it in 2016, so a year before Michael, and I joined it maybe 3 months, 2 or 3 months after I moved in.
A question about the free boutique. Did you guys have any worries from building management of liability regarding the free boutique?
I think there was not opening it. I think the biggest concerns from management were who was going to do the work.
I see.
Like who was going to keep it clean, or if it got overcrowded, or if, you know, because we only like to keep things on the boutique like 2 or 3 weeks just to keep it like fresh looking. So then there was like, well, who's going to box it up and like wrap up things if they're fragile, or where's that, like who's going to store that, who's going to call Oasis to pick these things up. So I think that was more the concern from management. I mean, when COVID started, like they closed it down because they were concerned people would get sick from it in the early months. So maybe liability there, but not with like the actual running of it.
And then you guys have opened it back up now?
Yeah,
I
in
think
August.
they opened it in August. Yeah,
and we haven't closed it since.
Cool.
And
but I think they only like one person in there at a time.
Yeah,
I think that's the new.
Yeah, one family.
Yeah, or like a unit can go in, or like one person at a time. But it was never very crowded anyway. It's not like there were mobs of people around the free boutique.
So your process is about every 3 weeks, you like to kind of have a bit of turnaround just so it looks new and fresh. And so do you put the stuff that you take off in the Oasis Ban, or what do you do with it? Just to be clear?
Yeah, it depends. I should also say we do have a number of greenies on the go that come and just freshen it up, or make like rearrange the things, or they'll take things off that look kind of cruddy and either just like throw them out or put them in the Oasis bin. But yeah, stuff that, and of course stuff that's not allowed, like clothing or pillows, we like to remove it right away because we don't like people to have the impression that that's okay to sneak on the table.
Yeah.
Yeah, so stuff, either depending on what it is, it either goes in Oasis, or we have our own green committee storage. So sometimes, like if we see a whole bunch of seasonal items, we might clear them off and put them back out. Like if people dump Christmas things now, we might clear them off and put them back out in like November.
I see. Gotcha. One really important question that I get a lot, and I'd love for everyone to hear your perspective on this. What's your tips on how to get staff and management on board with ideas?
I would say spin it so that it looks like they're getting the benefit. So one thing, like when we wanted to rearrange the recycling and the garbage bins, like the way we said it was, hey, if you do it this week, it's less work for staff to like, you know, be decontaminating things. Because now the city fines you if they find contamination in the recycling, right? So what we said was, is if you put the recycling bins all in one area, there's less risk of contamination, and then there's less risk to get fined for that.
So you definitely want to frame things as this is making staff's jobs easier, it's making the office's job easier.
Yeah, or if you can frame it in a way that it's going to save them money. So, you know, even with the free boutique, like I'd mentioned, because we always saw a lot of things in the garbage room that were donatable, like next to the garbage bin, not even in it, but just next to it, especially when around moving in out time. So if you say something like, hey, if we have the free boutique in the Oasis to get some of this stuff out of the garbage room, that's less work for staff to be dealing with this stuff just laying around the garbage room.
Do you guys get any funding from the condo?
What's that?
Do you You guys have a budget from the condo for your activity?
Yes, and that was well, that was before Michael joined. There was some ugliness about people getting reimbursed. I won't go into the details, but the end result was that we decided it was important for us to have a budget as a committee so that we could be a line item. So if we did have expenses, related to signage or posters or things like that, we could get, we could just submit for reimbursement. And I think we get like $1,000 now. Is that right, Michael? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think like when I first started, it was like $500, and with more posters that we were producing, they said we could have 1,000.
Michael and Lisa, they love. They're very passionate about this. Lisa doesn't even live in Homewood anymore, and she's here, and they're definitely happy to connect. So if there's some ideas that you saw today that you want to learn more about as to how you could bring it to your building and want to reach out for their advice, feel free to ask us, and I can make connections. So that's all there. And then Michael and Lisa, do you want to maybe just take one or two more questions?
Oh yeah,
sure,
yeah,
fine.
I'm happy to answer
Yeah.
away.
So on that last point that you guys were talking about, how you guys have actually now $1,000 in the budget, obviously you've worked towards that over time. You've worked towards earning the trust of the board and the management, and them seeing a clear value in supporting you in that way. You mentioned the last time we chatted that like a tip that you have for new green committees is getting a board liaison. Can you speak a bit about that and why you shared that tip with me?
Yeah, I think it's, so first of all, Michael and I, when we joined the Green Committee, it was already an established thing with a board liaison. But the first board liaison we had, she only came like once in a while. And so a real difference was made when we had a different board liaison who was very interested in the environment and started coming to almost every meeting, really. Like, he's very proactive. And I think that's really important too, because sometimes some of the ideas we would pitch, like the free boutique, it's useful to have the board liaison be that connection point between what management needs and wants and how they run, and then what we want as the Green Committee. So he was able to maybe not troubleshoot, but raise a lot of the challenges that we would have with management, or something like collecting stats. We're like, oh yeah, we want to keep stats on this. Like, to us, it seems simple, but he's like, no, because the staff's busy and they got to do things. So it was useful to have that perspective so that we knew how to plan around it or form a strategy that could work with management so that we could both get our goals accomplished. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Lisa. And then maybe to conclude, I remember last time we chatted, you kind of spoke to just the importance of kind of being slow and steady, how this stuff takes time, but over time it adds up. Could you speak to that a bit as to your philosophy on sustaining your work over time?
Sure. So I would say I'm a very goal-oriented, like action-driven individual. So when I came in the Green Committee in 2016, I was like, we're gonna do all these amazing things, and then it came to a crashing halt when I realized, like, it's run by volunteers. There's like politics. We had this liaison was coming all the time. We had this like money issue. And so I think a lot of it for me was just managing my expectations and realizing that it's a volunteer run committee and things are going to happen, but being open to how people can contribute, and also, like thinking about the goals in terms of a long-term perspective rather than like, we're going to get this done, in 3 months, because that's not how fast things move. And I think, just chipping away slow and steady at what our goals were, I see now over the 4 or 5 years that I've been in it has actually been a pretty effective strategy. So even just starting small on things and then building on it over time has given us momentum and allowed us to retain our, our members in the committee and have a presence with management. And, like slowly some things started to become routine and part of our committee. That makes sense? Okay.
Yeah, that was really well said. Thanks, Lisa. All right, so with that, I think we could end today's session. Thank you so much again, Michael and Lisa. This was so great. And
yeah, it's fun.
it's definitely makes me really excited to continue doing these type of virtual tours. So yeah, keep your eyes out for our next events, and we'll see you then.